This is the Reconstructed Man podcast. Welcome to our third episode. I'm Layne Daniel. I'm happy to be here. I'm rocking a new shirt with Kamala on it. Ooh. And I've got friends in low places. One of them happens to be the other host of this show, Daniel Thurman. Daniel, my dude, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. I think I've successfully recovered since last week to a degree, but every time I see a news headline come up on my phone, I kind of crumble a little bit. But I think I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right. How you doing?
Well, I'm glad to hear you're doing okay. I mean, I'm excited about tonight's show. Yeah. But to your point, right, I was going to make a tweet today that said, we can't even really celebrate the win because we have to worry about the coup. We have to worry about the ballots, and we have to worry about the Pentagon firings. We got to worry about the wall going up. Yeah, I will say, the last 2 nights I've actually slept.
That's good.
Because there's at least some hope, you know? Mm-hmm. There's at least some hope, I think, right? Right?
Yeah. There's a lot of hope. I mean, there's a lot of good that came out of last week. I think we'll talk about some of it tonight, which is good and exciting. But yeah, I think there's also a lot to worry about, and there's a lot of rebuilding in this country. So I think we can't lose sight of one or the other, but I think that's hard for us sometimes because we just want to, celebrate. I took Saturday and just celebrated. I think a lot of people did. And then I woke up Sunday like I felt like I was hungover because I'm like, all right, party's over. Now there's a lot more work to do. So I think that's just where we're at. Yeah.
We didn't really celebrate, I wouldn't say. We took a deep breath, we took a breath, and we were excited. We hugged and we high-fived, but we didn't do it like we would have if we weren't in a pandemic.
Yeah.
And then, you turn around and it's like, just because you're losing doesn't make it not valid. So that's something I'm having a hard time with. I'm kind of mad about that today. But overall, yeah, man, we won though.
Yeah.
We won. Remember what I told you last week? It's like, if we win, Kamala Harris is going to be our vice president. I'm going to do something crazy on this show. And do you want to know what I'm going to do?
What are you going to do?
You want to know what I'm going to do? I'm going to show up with a pimple. Kidding. But it's a good thing that this is an audio podcast, and I would like to throw out there to everyone, feel free to only listen to this episode. You don't have to go to our YouTube for this one. We want you to love listening to us because there is a bright red beacon on my face. Okay. Anyway, back to the show.
There's actually twinsies tonight because I got one on my neck right now. So we have like twins zits for everyone. Yeah. So yeah, maybe we should
just listen to this one. Just listen to this one. It's fine. Okay, but my shirt though, I guess I don't know how you see my shirt if you don't, but look at this though.
Oh, it's beautiful. I enjoy that.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. I got to get me one of those.
It feels great. Yeah. Can you even believe it, really? That's a shining, happy moment. That's a shining, happy moment. As we get into talking about the topic tonight, which the title of the show is FIRSTS, this is so huge in so many ways. And I wanted to buy a shirt on Tuesday night, and as soon as they called it Saturday at 11:30, I said, I got to get on Amazon. And so I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
I'm happy.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, there's a lot to be happy for. I mean, I think I'm not probably the biggest fan of Biden, but I obviously am in support of democracy. So I'm not happy with Trump. So I'm really happy for a win. But I feel really joyous about Kamala, and I feel excited about the symbolism of her taking on that role and what it says to so many people. It's that, the ceiling shattering moments that none of us forget, and it changes what people do after they see something like that. And what always gets me is when the cameras would pan into the audience, and there would be, I remember this young girl, she might have been like, 4 or 5 years old, and she's on top of her mom's shoulders, and a little black girl on top of her African-American black mother, and they're crying together, and it's like, I don't even know if the little girl obviously understood totally what was going on, but she knew that there was something so significant. She'll never forget that. and that's rippled across so many different people. So that was pretty amazing.
Yeah. Another moment, I just felt like millions of people's lives got a lot better in an instant. You know?
Yeah.
And that's what really has impacted me. And that's why it's hard for me to understand how we can be so selfish, you know, because literally millions of people are going to get the basic things, you know, and we can ensure basic rights. You know, we're talking about human rights. And so, no, I think in a country of 350 million people, should we have had 2 white 70-year-olds as our 2 finalists? No, that is not representative of our country. They don't understand. They can't understand the breadth of diversity that we have here just because of who they are. But with Kamala, you know, I mean, you just you can see the cracks. It's happening. And it is beautiful, and it's hard to not be emotional about it. It's hard to not think about what it means for all little girls, and especially little black girls, little brown girls. I mean, it's a special time. So, you know, I'll wear this shirt proudly, as a man, as a black man, you know, I'll wear it proudly, because this is a moment that it's as big as Barack to me.
Yeah. How's your family feel right now?
The thing is, to be honest, we're kind of all back to COVID. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. That is crazy.
We're back to COVID, and it's worse a little, you know. So I think everybody's happy, but it's hard to focus on that when you have this idiot who won't, you know, like, some sense of decorum, and the enablers are just outrageous.
Yeah.
So
it feels
successful
a little terrorizing.
week, right?
Yeah.
We won, but like.
Yeah, people got to be looking out right now. That's for sure. I mean, I think there's so much that can still happen. People can't get tired. People can't get sleepy. You know, I think we all need to have our wits about us, and still fighting. And Georgia is going to be a huge battleground come January and leading up to it, and really figuring out who's going to do the better job of mobilizing their voters. So I'm hoping Stacey Abrams has done a fantastic job in Georgia and is really getting a lot of the respect that she's been owed since she took on voter suppression in Georgia a couple of years ago. I'm hoping all the pieces get in place. I'm hoping that folks from Atlanta turn out and the suburbs turn out, and the Senate can go and flip Democrat, because it'll have major implications on what the Biden administration can actually do. But it changed everything. Yeah.
It'll change everything. And it's pie in the sky a little, but not really.
Yeah.
I mean, they're mobilizing. And I saw a story today come out where they said it's suspected that they had some people in the race just to try to siphon off voters. And that's unfortunate, but that's what we're dealing with right now. And I think people are upset, you know, people are upset, and anger can drive you to the polls. I mean, there's people that need things to change. And if we were to take control of the Senate, I mean, things will get done. I mean, think about the Equality Act, just that alone. It's been in the Senate since May of 19, you know, I mean, that's absurd. Yeah. And then the last thing, okay, this is my last thing. Then we can talk about then we can get to the show. This is one of the most offensive things to me that they've done. This Million MAGA March. I mean, I'm sort of pissed off about that. And one, because how dare you name it that? Like, you white men need to be oppressed that bad?
Is this a new thing?
You're going to march.
I haven't heard of it yet.
It's Saturday the 14th. Of November. They're doing a Million MAGA March. I mean, does that not sound like, one, the grossest thing you've ever heard? Two, you need to be oppressed that bad? What you marching for? What's being taken from you? What you marching for? And then they want to call it the Million MAGA March. I mean, I just can't. I mean, that's rude. And you don't get to make a play on words of something that actually means something to an entire population of people. I mean, the other thing, I mean, they're ridiculous. So
I have not.
You
hadn't
heard about
yet.
that?
I have not heard of that yet. No.
What's your reaction?
It's disgusting. It's disgusting, but it's so predictable because I think this administration, and I think a lot of the followers of Trump, and we talked about this last week a little bit too, maybe not as much as it needs to be talked about, but there is the Republican Party is strongly still rooted in white supremacy. And it may not mean that every single person that votes for Trump feels strongly about or has very strong over racist ways about them, but I think they're in there, and I think that that's a big foundation. And so I think you're right when you talk about, you know, their conceptualization of oppression and turning it around as if they are the oppressed, which is absolutely, fundamentally, technically impossible. But that is the sense of a lot of those followers and of that administration, and it's scary. I think it's quite scary right now because they're in a position of power to do things that we're not even sure of right now. We don't even know if they're going to start flipping electoral college votes right now, and I think that's it's a huge concern of mine. But they're taking over the language, the history, the emotion of the oppressed, and we've seen that in history many times, and it's absolutely gross and should not be stood for. And we need to have more people angry because there's fear that's coming to the polls, and there's anger, and I think we got to drum up the anger, and we have to also drum up some of the positivity and the good emotion too of hope.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's interesting. I'm glad I brought it up, and I'm glad that you had a chance to react because, I mean, that's a hard one a little bit to swallow.
It should be.
It
should be. I mean, all of this stuff should be hard to swallow.
Think about the real struggle. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're mad because people might get to make their own choice about their own body. Mm-hmm. You gonna march across the country for that? What if you just don't do it? Mm-hmm. So anyway, I mean, so that's what we're dealing with. Like, we can't just move forward. But you know what I mean? We can't bask in how hard we worked and how much we suffered. Not that we're these big victims, but you know what I mean? Yeah. It happened in record number. We can't even bask in that because for the first time ever, we can't get a concession. Now, all of a sudden, the usual channels to call the election aren't usual. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's, you try to take things away from people, when you can. And I think about that for Kamala too, and I'm happy about the way that they're handling this because they're not giving it any attention. Mm-hmm. And that's what we have to try to do. But.
Yeah, I agree. Well, on that note, maybe we should move over a little bit too to some of the positives that came out of last week, which after we started to tally it up was crazy, which is why we decided to do tonight's show on FIRST, right? So the first of FIRST. So how many times do you remember in your lifetime seeing a first and the impact that had? Just like we talked about Kamala and that impact, that ripple effect that's going to last for generations. We're going to be talking about Kamala like we're going to talk about Barack for hundreds of years. It just means something that I don't even think all of us can fully comprehend on a holistic level and a personal level. So there was a lot of them the other night on election night. So we thought it would be important to recognize and give a shout out to those folks that really made a difference and are going to make a big difference in all of our lives.
I mean, that's really it. The more people in office that represent us, the country, that are speaking really, when it really starts to represent us. I love when we look at the Democratic House, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then you look at the Republican House. I mean, I love it. And you can see the country on the Democratic side, Yeah. And then on the other side, you see people who are just making decisions, not for the right reasons. So about these people, we had 9 Democratic and 9 Republican Native American women who ran for Congress.
Yeah, awesome.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah. In 2018,
in
only two.
Oh, you're going?
Yeah, well, I know. I was just giving an add-on to that because in 2018, I think this is important, right? Only 2 Native American women ran for Congress, and this year 18, which is incredible. So there's something going on right now, and it's so important for us to be able to acknowledge that and celebrate that.
Yep. Let's see. In New Mexico, they elected 2 indigenous women in Congress and 3 women of color to the House.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've never been to New Mexico, but that's like when COVID breaks, I think that's the first U.S. state I'm going to go to. That or Delaware, I'm not sure. So I don't know. We'll see.
Really?
Yeah. I'm really fascinated by New Mexico. I think it's a beautiful landscape, and I like to be outside. But like, I'm going anywhere that's got their government situated and has a good handle of things and their diversity.
Dude,
so.
my countrywide travel is based on that damn map. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm looking at that map. Like, these are the places I'm going, and these are the places that will never get my money.
Yeah.
What did Oklahoma do? Let's see. Yeah. They elected the first Muslim non-binary lawmaker to their state legislature.
Oklahoma, right? This is one of the things that surprised me, and hopefully folks will pick up on this too as we go through this list, is that there's going to be some areas that, for me at least, surprised me, that I would be thinking it would be like, obviously like New York and California, some of the more like progressive states, a little bit northeast and northwest. Right. So it was really surprising.
Montana.
Yeah, right. It's really surprising. Say Montana. We can't be mean. We don't want to be mean.
Okay.
But Oklahoma really surprised me. That not only they elected a Muslim but a non-binary person to their legislature, which is incredible. Oklahoma. So props to Oklahoma. Awesome. And
props to Oklahoma.
Yeah, Florida. First openly queer black woman elected, which is pretty awesome. Missouri.
Sweet.
Yeah, Missouri elected its first black congresswoman, which is crazy to me. I can't even really wrap my head around that we're celebrating that as a first right now. But that's progress. That's huge progress.
2020.
Mm-hmm. Right?
2020. You're right. Well, Tennessee elected their 2 first openly gay LGBTQ legislators.
Wow.
That's sweet.
Tennessee, the South.
Further south.
Yep. And Georgia had a couple, right? So we had the first openly gay state senator, who was reelected, and then the first openly gay state representative. So I'm telling you, Georgia is on the move right now. So I'm looking to January. I'm hoping they're going to deliver even more. But really impressed with Georgia, and a lot of that goes.
Georgia's on my mind.
Is on your map.
Is on my mind. See what I did there? Oh. Georgia.
Ooh, I've never heard you sing. You have a really good singing voice.
Karaoke king.
Did not know. I don't think I've ever done karaoke with you. I don't.
I don't remember.
Actually. I don't have memories of it.
I don't know how we're ever going to do it again, but we could get in the market of disposable mic covers due to COVID. That could be a business idea.
Okay.
So, anyway, when we get out of here.
Okay. I'm there with you.
Back to the list. Who you got? New York.
Yeah, New York. Yeah.
New York elected 2 openly gay black men to Congress, including the first queer Afro-LatinX official to serve in the U.S. Congress.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that crazy, though? Like, New York, which I would think would have done this like 20 years ago, and maybe I'm giving too much credit to New York or I don't know, the electoral system, but this is the first 2 openly gay black men in Congress in New York. Like, that just seems crazy, right? Like, I've grown up with, black people and gay people and trans people, and it just blows my mind that these are the first. So it's striking to me, but I'm so proud that people are shattering these ceilings right now. So that's New York, yeah. And then Hawaii elected its first openly.
Well, but hold on, though. Yeah. But one other thing about that, I mean, it says something about the people that are voting for them too. I mean, it's happening. Mm-hmm. Do you know? I mean, when I saw them, because I saw it on Twitter, when they won, and I was like, wow, that's so great. And I was kind of affected, like, I wish it wasn't so, but I get it. Mm-hmm. I get it, because people have to be willing to vote, and you have to be willing to put it out there like that. Think about Pete Buttigieg. I mean, think of the role model that he is right now for so many.
Right.
And that's huge. Mm-hmm. So I just want to say that about those guys.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. Hawaii as well elected its first openly LGBTQ legislature. That was legislator, which was huge. Vermont, go Vermont, elected its first transgender state legislator. So now we got the trans folks coming on board, which is awesome. Yeah. Mind blowing to me. Absolutely mind blowing that this is happening right now and to such a degree because it keeps going. And what happened in Kansas, Layne?
Kansas elected their first transgender legislator, who also happens to be Native American.
Right, crazy.
And Delaware, where you want to visit, also elected their first transgender U.S. senator. I mean, trans people are making it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just crazy. It's just, it's overwhelming. I got goosebumps talking about this right now, just to see this happening to such an extent. I remember, like, I don't know, 10 years ago in my life, I didn't think that transgender was going to be like the next gay. I thought it would be out of my lifetime, or it would be at the end of my lifetime, that I would actually see there such progress for the trans community. And now we're seeing one by one trans folks being elected to high level government positions, elected by our people, which is just overwhelming to see. So this year,
it's happening.
Well, between 2018 and 2020, on this note, LGBTQ elected officials grew by 41%. So in 2 years' time, people that are representing our community, our tribe, our LGBTQ brothers and sisters, grew by 41%. Just outstanding. So there's a shift, not only, I think, to your point, Layne, in who's voting and what people are voting for, but I think also the willingness of people that are out about their identities, willing to be out about their identities as a politician, which wasn't so accepted before, and people that are willing to put their personal identities on the line to have an impact on the rest of our lives, to carry out the law in the way that we're voting for. And that's just a really beautiful human thing when that happens at such a rate. So I think, taking time today to commemorate them, to honor them, to recognize them, to hold them up, for all of us to be aware of them, to do our research, to reach out, to offer our help, and to continue to keep doing this. And for anyone else that's got an idea in their head that this may be something that they want to do, or that they never would have dreamed of doing before, but now they're like, you know what, I could actually do that. There's hundreds and thousands of more people now that can come up because of all these people that have shattered these ceilings. Just beautiful thing.
Yeah. And I think I really am affected by the fact that they were voted into office. And that again shows, it goes back to even before the election, we were talking about there's more of us than there are of them. And there's more of us that want everybody, that think it's okay for everybody to just be themselves. There's more of us that that are for equality, that understand that equality doesn't mean oppression. So that's one thing that does have me hopeful when we look at a list like that.
Yeah. Because
in a place like Vermont, in a place like, when you get to down south, right? These are big moments. And these people will come before the next, but there are people that came before them too, right? The Trailblazers, especially those elected officials who are transgender. I mean, there were people that came before them that really made it so you and I can do this show, And I think we should talk about some of them too.
Yeah, we absolutely should be talking about them, right? And how often do we get a chance to do this, to do it together, to just have a conversation and to remember and to honor. And then I think to do it with an audience is super important anytime we can do that. I think that's what continues to help us grow, continues to support people that are blazing these trails for the rest of us. I was starting to look into this a little bit when you and I were having this conversation initially, and I had some thoughts about who I thought might be the first of folks. But there's a lot more than I was aware of. And I feel really ashamed to admit that, being a trans person and an out trans person, and, I consider myself a strong advocate for the trans community and the LGBT community. But I didn't know, a lot of the folks that have paved the way for me. So this was a great education for myself to go into and to look a little bit more into who set some of these things in motion for me to be able to be myself and not only be a trans male with the resources to do this, but also then adopt a security and a pride of being trans. And we owe it a lot to these folks. A lot.
I agree. And you don't realize, to your point from earlier, 10 years ago, you never thought that you didn't think it would get to this point. I only started, I don't want to say only, but we're at almost 4 years to when I really started thinking about it, actually. And I couldn't even see the future. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't see my future. What was that going to look like? How was I going to get along in the world? And we do have to do our part in learning our history. We do. You know what I mean? We have to make sure that we take the time to understand who did what so that we can do what we're doing. And this show is important. This episode is important because without these people, right, there wouldn't be the access. These people wouldn't be in office. They just wouldn't be, right. Because somebody, just like, in every other civil rights situation, somebody had it worse before us. Right. Should we talk about our Trans Trailblazers? We have a little list we could talk about.
Yeah. Let's do it.
I think we should.
You want to start?
You go first.
All right. So I think, someone that's really important to recognize and remember, and this is going back before many of us were probably ever alive. I know for me, I was not alive at this time, but it was an individual that I had studied a while back in my undergrad program that was a news story to me, and it was Christine Jorgensen, who happened to be the first person in the United States to undergo publicly trans reassignment surgery. And this really happened without Christine's consent. She went to Denmark, I believe it was in 1952 or 1953, went to Denmark to have the surgery because we weren't having these surgeries conducted in the United States at that point, and successfully underwent the surgery. Well, the press got a hold of it and kind of went into her hospital room and wanted to start reporting on this. And it was really overwhelming for Christine, and she felt very uncomfortable with it. But what ended up happening when she got back to the U.S. and realized that this wasn't going away is she took control of that narrative. And this is interesting. I think it was episode 1, Layne, we were talking a little bit about, just started to touch on your story and how public you went with your transition. I think partly because, and it was a choice you made because you were already pretty well known in the community, and so you were already public, and the transition was probably going to end up being public to some extent, and you use that platform to tell your story and pave the way and educate others, which is such a powerful decision, and not everyone maybe has that opportunity or the mental ability at that point to do it. But Christine in 1952, it's hard for me to imagine what that decision was like, but she owned it, and she came back and she started to tell her story, and she actually received a lot of fame and honorable recognition for it, and to this day became really the first well-known figure in the United States to actually medically transition, which is so powerful.
It's an incredible story. And if you think of people that we consider trailblazers now, Janet Mock, Laverne Cox, they come behind her, Right. I mean, there's something to be said about taking control of your story. And trans people often don't have that. They don't have that chance. They don't have that choice, and hers certainly. And so I think if you have the chance to do that, or if you can, or if that's what feels right for you, you do that. But people try to take that away from us because they don't understand, or they have hate, or they're, I mean, so I love that story. I'm a little taken aback a little bit, actually.
Yeah. Have you heard of Christine before this?
Just heard of. We did a thing at my job, and I've heard her name. That's it, and that's on me. Just like you said, we have to know our own history. How do I not know that? I know about Lily Elby, who
I don't know much about Lily. You mentioned her, and I didn't have much of a.
So they made a movie, and it was called The Danish Girl, and basically, she ended up having sex reassignment surgery like in the 1930s or something like that. And she made it through the surgery. That's what they showed in the movie. She made it through the surgery, but she didn't make it very long. Like they just didn't have the tools to keep her alive.
So there was a death from complications of the surgery.
Correct. Was from complications. It was rare. She did at that time. But that touched me because you're watching someone who was born male, in a place overseas where that wasn't okay. He was married at the time when he, and the person that Lily was married to was great, but also not. I mean, so you got to see all of it, and it was based off of a true story. So
that's the Danish Girl, was good for me, right? I remember when that came out, and I don't know if I even realized this is horrible. I don't know if I even realized there was a trans story in that, which is crazy.
I didn't realize it either.
I wonder if that was a bit hidden in the advertisement and marketing for it. I think in my mind, when you had said it, I'm like, oh yeah, I think that was a lesbian film, but I clearly got my LGBTQ labels mixed up, or I don't know what happened, but I feel.
And I just kind of happened upon it. Like I can't even remember how I think I was kind of flipping through, I don't know, whatever, it was on Netflix or something, and I read the description. I thought, huh. And as we're watching it, I'm like, because you're right. It didn't lead me to think I'm getting ready to watch a trans story.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it, but I probably should have known. I think it's pretty popular.
So, and actually, and I apologize if I didn't catch it when you said it. Was this when you watched the movie? Was it when you were transitioning, or prior to even considering transitioning?
Transitioning, but it was early. Like, it would be November of 2016. I really realized and had, started to tell the people around me, decided, figured I had to go get therapy, right? I started therapy like December of 16, and somewhere in there, December, January, February, I started T in February of the next year. And so somewhere in there, I watched it, and it was just so, it was impactful, but also kind of like,
yeah. I mean, that's crazy to, to be able to have. When I was transitioning, I don't think there was really any movies about trans folks, not at least Hollywood mainstream. So that's crazy to be in transition and then have this thing that is telling part of your story, right? And that's great.
Think about what we have now. Think about Pose.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love Pose.
Pose is fantastic.
Oh, I love Pose.
Did you ever watch Hollywood yet?
No, I have not seen Hollywood yet. No.
You're gonna want to watch Hollywood. That's another good one.
Okay.
I mean, we've got some stuff going, and that again, it all ties into the people are voting. Yeah. There's an audience that has to watch this, and there's also the population of us. I mean, think about how many of us are walking around, that people are unaware, or that don't self-identify, or are stealth. I mean, so we still get to vote.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think, one of the things that a lot of research has told us now, looking back on the gay civil rights movement, is that what changed public's perception or acceptance of gay people was the mere simple fact of people getting to know a gay person, or recognizing a family member was gay, or a neighbor, or a best friend, or a classmate, or whoever it is, right? It was the recognition of someone that doesn't identify as being homosexual, getting to know someone and recognizing that they're a good human being. That was it was the the more people that came out,
That's how it worked. That was the thing. Yeah.
Right. So the more people the more you're comfortable with that ilk of folk. And I think that we're starting to see that may be why the trans movement is moving so quickly and well beyond what I thought, and probably what a lot of other people thought, is because there's more people now that are coming out as trans and having this conversation and having this new nomenclature around it, where we have words. We have words and identity. When I was going through this, transgender was not the term, it was transsexual. And that's even shifted in the past 20 years. So there's just a lot that's shifting. We're open to non-binary. People don't have to have specific gendered pronouns. There's just so much that's happening, and I think it's because more and more and more people are coming out. And I think you always make such a great point of it's an individual choice, and not everyone wants that. Not everyone's in that place, and it might change throughout one's lifetime. But when people can, it is powerful. Part of the reason that we're just doing the show is to be able to put more of these words out there, more of these conversations out there too for folks. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I like your shirt, by the way. Is it just gray?
It is just gray. It's gray. There's
a
message
strong
on
gray.
It's
a strong gray.
It
fits you.
This is my my activist shirt right here. This is like, there's just too many words to put on the shirt. So it's like whatever you need it to be. That's what this is. It's a blank slate.
All the words.
It also helps to show off the zit tonight too, because I think it's important that we're real.
I love what you just said, and I want people to just know, if however you live your life is the best way you can live your life. And I want to make sure that I don't make anybody ever feel like you have to come out in a certain way, right? All you have to do is be you. That is all you have to do. All you have to do is be you. And
on that note, we have another person that's on our list that that you and I had both come up with, but for two different reasons, and that's Jazz Jennings. I was introduced to Jazz through a children's book, which was really, really awesome for me, and it to me it was like, we're now starting to tell this story to young people. We're letting young people know that this is okay, or that you might come across this, or you might be this, or you might feel this. And it was co-written by Jazz. I don't know how old she was at the time, and I don't want to make a guess, but she was very, very young when she began to transition through the support of her family, and very young when she wrote this book, so that other young people had an understanding of who she was and could also help folks. But then you had another connection, or you came across Jazz in a different way that I haven't even plugged into yet. And how was that?
I didn't know that you hadn't plugged into this side yet. Get this. Mm-hmm. So as I'm transitioning early on, 2017, 18, I'm like trying to find all the information I can, all the documentaries, all the shows, all the everything. And so we find this show, All That Jazz. And I'm like, what is this? And it's about this little girl and her family. And it was really great. And I watched it with my two girls.
It's a documentary?
No, it was a show. But I was looking for documentaries like that. There was a show on like TLC for seasons.
Wow.
And we watched it, and it was great. It showed the parent, it showed siblings, it did, interviews one-on-one. It was like a reality show, but following her life as she was trying to transition and getting surgery and wanting to, take hormone blockers and, first dates and liking boys and having older brothers. And I mean, it was good to watch, even being a grown up. But it was good for my kids to watch too, to kind of see that this is happening in the world, and because I can imagine as a kid, if your parent tells you, that's something to try to really you have to grapple with. And so we were trying to make sure that we could get them as much information as we could also.
Yeah, that's so great. That's so great that you guys were able to use that as kind of a connection point not everything has to be a conversation around the dinner table. It can just be exposure. It can just be, modeling. It can just be, adding perspective to someone's, narrow lens that they just haven't been exposed to it yet. So that's really cool to hear how your family, I always think about your family as just like your immediate family, just very accepting, very open, like didn't need that. But I think everyone needs that, I think it's
everybody needs that.
It's helpful. Yeah.
Well, and one of our episodes is going to be on family. One of our episodes is going to be on family, and we'll talk about that. And I've been thinking about it for a while now, but it's important that we keep educating them, and it's important that even the people that are the most supportive, or that have been the most supportive, that they understand that this is a thing that is going to continue. It's a lifetime. Yeah. You have to keep learning. You have to keep understanding. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think it kind of makes me think too, that it's important to remember that every trans person's different. Every gay person's different.
Yes.
Black person's different. Every Native American's different, that we're all so unique, that there's things that are similar. And so there's stories that kind of cross weave, amongst individuals and groups, but, it's important too for people to be able to see how different trans people live or think, or, I had a conversation with, a young person today, and, we had a very honest conversation, and she wanted to ask me some questions, about being trans, and, just wanted to know, surgery questions and different things like that, I'm just letting her know, like, it's okay. It's okay, because my story is going to be different than someone else's. So just make sure that, you do ask, and you do trace these stories down, and you do inquire, and you do, learn more about differences, because you can't just meet one person and hear their story and think that it's that's what makes a trans person.
Right.
Surgery
it's not all encompassing.
Trans person, right? But yeah, just getting more people's stories out there is so great, which is why these trailblazers a lot of times now are out, and that sets a different pace of things happening in the future.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I want to know something from you.
Sure.
Should I ask you? Should we go there? I want to know. I mean, we're talking about FIRSTS. It's been a big week. And one thing we didn't mention before I ask you this, that I think we must, Joe Biden in his acceptance speech, where he came out and said that, we won. He mentioned trans people and gay people. I mean, he's the first president-elect to actually mention trans people, and that brought tears to my eyes. Mm-hmm. It just did. And I'm not saying that I wasn't like, yay, Joe Biden, he's the greatest thing that we could ever have, but I'm like, hell yeah, Joe Biden saying trans in his president-elect acceptance speech, because we exist, because you'll probably let us serve in the military, because you understand that healthcare for everybody, right? For everybody. I mean, so that was a big first too.
I think that was a good point, and I think it's something that I almost skipped over until you had brought it up. And it's like, those things are not small; they are so significant, because anytime we look at leaders, a leader of an institution, a leader of a country, those leaders are symbolic, and their words matter. Whatever Trump says, the words matter so much. And for a president, a leader, president-elect, a leader that is acknowledging your existence, my existence, some of the people in our audience's existence.
To the world,
that these people exist, we exist, and they deserve the same rights as everybody else. It's definitely a moment that needs to be acknowledged. So I appreciate the fact that you honed in on that, and it's part of this conversation.
Mm-hmm. That was one of the moments where I said, yes, Joe. Well, I'm okay with that. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. And then the news station showed a reaction in, I can't remember what community. I want to say downtown San Francisco, They were watching it live, and when he said that, they like went nuts. Like, of course, I mean, it was, but that's so huge.
Yeah.
Imagine that. I mean, I don't have to imagine the feeling. I felt it, but like, you're watching that, and the president is actually like trans, gay, like.
Right. I mean, just think about the more room and the more opportunity that trans folks just got to come out as trans, or eventually will in their lifetime, because I do think that, you know, real progress is when people can feel pride in who they are and they want to share that. I think it takes a long time for oppressed communities and identities to get to that place. I think there's days you feel the pride and there's days that you're frustrated, but I think we all need to start moving in a way that we embody the pride of who we are, whatever that might be, especially when there is a marginalized piece of your identity that other people told you to keep quiet. It's not right. You don't belong. You don't deserve. You don't have the same rights. You're this, you're that. When you hear that, there's a sense of trauma and ownership of that we all feel in a marginalized identity. But when we can come back and take that power back is, I think, one of the most beautiful human evolutions that we can make in ourselves. And so I'm really hoping that this episode tonight brings people a little bit closer to that. I hope this show in general does that, and I hope election night did that, and I hope all the firsts we continue to keep pushing people closer and closer and closer to feeling that sense of pride about who they are, especially beautiful trans bodies. Everyone. Yeah. So back to your question. You had a question.
My question, sheesh. My question was just going to be, whoa. My question was just going to be, who was your first kind of trans role model?
I feel like I have a lot of trans role models now, which is really great and surprising. I didn't know I'd collect this many people in the past 10 years of my life, but I think the first person that kind of shifted my perspective on what trans could look like for me was his name's Lauren Cameron, and he's a photographer out in San Francisco. I was in San Francisco back in, I think it was 2003. I never remember, 2002 or 2003. I had my top surgery in San Francisco because there really wasn't that many places in the country to get it. So I went out to San Francisco for a couple weeks, and I was with my wife, and we were in the Castro, and I went into this gay bookstore, which was in itself so liberating, coming from the Midwest and then being out in San Francisco in the early 2000s to see the possibilities. And I came across this book. I picked up this book, and it was called Body Alchemy by Lauren Cameron. And if you haven't seen it yet, you need to get a copy of this, or I'll send my copy out to you to take a look at this, or look online at some of the photographs that are there. But the book is a photo documentary series of female to male trans bodies, and then there's also a pretty large section on self-portraits of Lauren taking images of himself. And he's a stud. He's a built, tattooed, beautiful trans body that every image just oozes out pride and vulnerability, and strength, and beauty, and it was like page after page after page of confirmation of this is what's possible. This is who you are. This is a beautiful thing. You don't need to be a cis male. You are a trans male, and that means so many other things, and you need to feel pride in that. And these individuals feel pride, and it just happened to coincide right when I had my top surgery, and it just kicked things off for me. It was like all of a sudden I had a new lens that I didn't have before. I had a new way of seeing myself, a new way of accepting it. And it slowly started to put in place a foundation of considering being out and trans. You know, I mean, I was going out to San Francisco to have top surgery because I was getting closer to passing. I was getting closer to passing as a cis male. And I think that's when it hit me that maybe that's not totally what you want. Maybe that's not who you are. And I think that there's something more beautiful to tell your real story. Don't lose that, even though your body is becoming closer to a biological male. That was definitely, I think, a super pivotal model experience for me in my life. And I was just looking at that book the other day. Actually, I was kind of going through when we were talking about the show and came across that book, and I was just like immediately emotional from it. So
now I was going to ask you, so, I mean, did you look him up any further?
I don't know what he's doing now. I know that he had a number of photography projects. I think there was a project that he was working on with his partner, but I don't know exactly what he's up to at this point or where he's at.
I think that's wonderful that you just walked in there and you happened upon that book. And you know where it is right now?
Do I know where the book is right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. It's downstairs because I opened it up. It's one of my, it was funny because I brought it back from San Francisco, and I wasn't out to everyone in my life. It took me many years after that to become much more publicly out. And so it would be this book that I would put in a pretty visual bookshelf in my house. And there would be times that someone would come in that didn't know about me that I'd be like, I wonder if they'll, and sometimes people would pick up the book and take a look at it and, and I never knew if it gave me away or outed me or made someone kind of think, but it was always like, no, you keep that book out because that is you. And it was a small way of kind of working towards like, don't hide, don't forget. And the beauty and the power of accepting yourself and then being able to put that back, in front of other people. And I just hope everyone eventually in their lives gets that opportunity. It takes time. It takes personal, a lot of personal work. But it is possible. It's a journey to get there, but that book and Lauren's images, and his telling his story outwardly, and the other trans men in the book that told their stories outwardly was just life-changing for me. And I think, when we're talking about FIRST, like we are on the show tonight, that's what that means to me. It's those moments that change, that all of a sudden give you a new path that didn't exist before that. And that book certainly did that for me.
I think that's incredible. It's an incredible story. And it's different for everybody. You walked into a bookstore and found the book that spoke to you, still speaks to you today, and for some people it's a person, for some people it's a moment. I mean, I think that's an amazing story. And probably the book is doing what he hoped it would do. Just, that's how it works, right? He came before and it's happening, and it allowed you to, it gave you some strength, Yeah. I think that's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. When you can tell your story, because someone needs to hear it. And if you're someone that's not ready to tell your story, go search other people's stories because they're telling it to you. And that's the lesson of this, is that you don't have to be one or the other. Just recognize that. And there are stories to be told and there's stories to be heard. Wherever you're at, this is survival. It gave me a new opportunity at life. So I'm curious, now that you throw out this question, I'm curious about your trans role model, and I'm really curious too about when it happened for you, because as we've talked about a few times, your transition happened relatively recently. So I'm just kind of curious about when that might have happened. Like, did it happen when you were 5 and then it was repressed? Did it happen, recently? So I'm just curious. I'm kind of fascinated by the differences that you and I have, about transitioning. So I'm looking forward to this.
That's funny. One thing though is some of the things that you were saying about your story when you were talking about the book. I think there's similarities for all of us in how they affect us and the feelings that they evoke, in our reactions. Because I was thinking in my head, gosh, he's using some of the words I'm going to use. When I describe my whatever you were saying, the things is like, are you in my head? But trans guys,
I am, but okay. That's a different show.
So when I did not have a trans role model growing up. I don't know that I knew what that was growing up. Growing up the way I did, it was in a box and it was at church. So I wasn't seeing that a whole lot. So when I was working at LCC with you, you might be you're definitely the first trans person I'd call a friend, without a doubt. And when you told me, I think it changed both of our lives. Honestly, I think it changed both of our lives, because when I think of the trans person that's had the biggest influence in my life, or that helped me with a moment of clarity, like, it's you. And it's you because when I heard you tell me that, it was fine. I mean, it was shocking because I didn't know. And not shocking in a bad way, shocking like, what? We might have been drinking. I don't know. But so after that, and then we were continuing to be friends, and I'm thinking about my stuff, you just made it real. And that's the best way that I can put it, because the thought can flash into your mind. Like, oh, the first time for me anyway, the first time I ever actually thought it, I put it away right away. I mean, I just was like, what the new? You can't do that. And
when was that, do you think? When you had that first thought?
I mean, it was before, it wasn't too far before you told me, and it was just fleeting. Do you know what I mean? Fleeting, like nothing that would have made me really move forward. It was just more of a, like, there's something off, you have that, and it's like, maybe it's this, but it's like, you can't really think it because maybe I just saw something on the internet, and I just remember it feeling real. I remember being like, that's actually something that is real, and he's okay. And
kind of.
I mean, but you know what I mean? Like, he's meaning you're alive and you're well and you have a job and you have a smile on your face. He's okay. Like, it could be real. Somebody loves him, like, if the circumstances are right in your life, and that's how you feel, it could do it. And I just remember feeling confident that I could do it. And that matters to me, because this was a big one.
Yeah.
And it felt, it's a leap. It's a leap. It really is. Because you're like, part of me was like, maybe you could put the little voice away and not, right? Like, maybe that's not really it. And you could talk yourself out of it. You could talk yourself out of anything, Maybe you could just talk yourself out of it, but that's the fear. And having great friends really helps. You were big.
Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. But I remember that night so clearly cloudy. We were a little cloudy.
I remember every minute, but like not.
Right.
Like, there's the gaps,
right.
But
but it was it was life-changing for me too, and in that this is a small tidbit I'll just share because I think it's important, is that I was working so hard to really be a normal straight male at the time. I was still kind of going in that direction. So I had a lot of gay friends, always had a lot of gay friends, but I didn't have a lot of trans friends, you know, like people who really got me. And I had met some trans folks, but it was never like a deep friend connection. Sometimes it would feel like a little forced, or like, oh, we should be closer than we are. And so you were really the, you know, by far, like I feel like you get me more than anyone but my wife gets me in this world. And it's not just because of the trans story that's combined, but like you really helped me to take pride and be confident in being trans. So like you turned that dial for me, which I think is really interesting that we both did something.
You turned it for me. It's something we've got a thing for sure, but it's people should know also, well, we didn't start out like super chummy. So, you know, great relationships take time to grow, people.
Let me just capitalize on that for a second, because when Layne was new at the school that I worked at, and I walked by Layne's office and said, "Oh, hey, new guy," and Layne was just like, and I was like, "Who's this
right
ass?" So let's just revisit that. Someone had some walls up. I was very friendly. Maybe too friendly.
Right. Oh my gosh. Anyway, yeah, you turned the dial. It was like oh, it was like, that's what it is. Mm-hmm. That's what it was. And it wasn't you. It's not because of you. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But it's certainly because of you. In terms of that moment, I needed to hear that at that time, because it was like, you know, and for you, I think, like you just said, you needed to say it like that to somebody who would be all right and be like, yeah, you better say it, you know?
Yeah, but, you know, I almost didn't tell you. I remember sitting on my porch steps, and we were just kind of getting in that territory. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I can trust him.
Okay, we weren't getting in that territory. You came out of a different territory. We might have been in a territory of like trees and shrubs, and you came with like the tropical storm trees. We weren't in any territory when you laid that one. Don't try it.
Okay.
But continue.
Anyway, I remember having this internal struggle, and for like gay folks and trans folks, we know those moments where we're like, yeah, I'm going to do it. No, I'm not. I'm going to do it. No, I'm not going to do it anymore. Right. And so I think I went back and forth for a little bit. So it wasn't like I was, you know, out trans. I still had to learn how to come out trans. It was still always awkward, you know? So I think probably having several drinks that night together helped a lot, you know, but yeah, that was crazy. And it was like, I could just be me after that. And you know, that's crazy. And then you transitioned so quickly. It was like, there might've been a little bit of a window of still kind of some personal reflection and stuff, but then you were just like, boom, I'm doing it. I got my appointments. I got my doctors. Like you were in, like you were like you had been trans your whole life, and you're like public speaking. And I was like, man, I gotta step up my game. Like Layne's passing me up. So you know, in a lot of ways too, I have to give a lot of credit back to you, because you helped me to be comfortably out and proud to be trans, because you were in the game so fast. So that's, man, you know, that's awesome.
Yeah, man. And look at us now, the Reconstructed Man podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's interesting because we've been talking about this since then, you know, of like how to help other people go through this, because it's not easy and there's so many pieces to the process. But there's beauty at the end of the tunnel. There really is. And you're a testament of that. And I'm a testament of that. And there's so many other people out there that have made it through some struggles. Not any of those people that we listed tonight have had it easy in their lives. Not one of them. And it's a series of, you know, painful experiences, doors shut on your face, people telling you that you're wrong, people telling you it'll never happen. Every single one of those people that we listed tonight can share so many stories with you. But everyone made it through, and they made it through because there were people that they looked up to that were their role models that changed the way that they saw themselves in the world. And I think it's really important that not only at this show, but after the show, we all take stock in who came before us and whatever that means, and remember them and honor them and read about them and listen to their stories and ask them questions, because they are still there to help pave the way for all of us.
I agree.
Yeah.
I love this. I love the firsts. I think they're so important. I think we have so much time to keep making firsts. There's 50 states. There's a lot of offices. There's a lot of elections, and there's a lot of work to be done. What can we be the first at? And so I'm thankful for this episode. I'm thankful for our new vice president-elect. Mm-hmm. I'm thankful for my new T-shirt still, but I'm thankful. I'm thankful that we got it, that we get to do this. That these people came before us, that the kids that are going to come behind us, right? And I'm thankful for you. So this is a good show. It's a good episode.
Yeah.
It's a fun time.
Yeah. Well, I'm super thankful for you as well. I'm thankful for the show. I'm thankful for this outlet. I'm thankful to have these conversations. And I'm also thankful that this rounds out leading up to next week, which is Trans Awareness Week. And so,
yes,
a shout back out to all the people that paved that way for that to even happen. So next week's going to be a great show. And we'll see what we talk about. So much more. So much more.
Well, and November 13th and 19th, Transgender Awareness Week always leads up to November 20th, which is Transgender Day of Remembrance. We commemorate and remember all the people that we lost to violence over the last year. So the big weeks starting November 13th, just to raise awareness, make sure that we celebrate those that came before us. So I'm excited about it, doing some stuff at work. And I think we should we'll think of something cool to do for the show for Trans Awareness Week. We'll get people aware.
For sure. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Oh, you're so mellow. We had a good talk. You let it out. I can tell. You let it out.
It was a good talk. So for everyone out there that's listening, I hope that this was a night to, just remember to be excited, to celebrate. And for those of you that might be struggling, that might be having a hard time, that might feel like there's no one out there, maybe you just came across this show, remember there's stories out there. So hang in there, do what you got to do to make it through. We're here for you, and we're here to absolutely let you know that it's going to be all right and you got this. And there's people here waiting for you to celebrate too. So if anything, I just feel like it's important to give that message to the folks that are listening to us, because there's a lot of folks that I think before you start to hear those stories and before you start to have those role models, it can be real, real tough. But you're not alone at all. Great show. Look forward to talking to you guys next week. Peace.
All right. And if you want to get in touch with us, make sure you send us an email at layneanddaniel@gmail.com.
Layne and
We'd
Daniel,
love to hear from you.
Not Daniel and Layne. LayneandDaniel@gmail.com.
You know the story behind that. Did you ever reach out to them? Did you reach out to them?
I'm letting it go. I'm going to let you just,
It sounds like you're letting it go. All right. Anyway, if you want to reach out to us, we have an awesome email address, layneanddaniel@gmail.com. Reach out to us. Otherwise, be well. Take care of your families. We'll talk to you next week.
Yeah. Peace.